Although I started seeing posts of bias remorse from those who voted for Uhuru Kenyatta and Jubilee as far back as 2018, I hadn't planned to do this episode until much later. This is because I feel that those who are feeling guilty, angered, sorry, stupid, or played for voting for Uhuru Kenyatta and Jubilee are having a mea culpa moment way too early, and only after a small taste of what awaits them and what awaits the rest of us who strongly warned against voting for Uhuru and the Jubilee government. My response to those posts till now has been twofold. One, a shrug of the shoulders with a rather nonchalant, I told you so. The other one, a more cynical advisory, come warning, mambo bado. I do not feel any compulsion to comment about this issue until now, and what has hastened the need for me to readdress this issue is a diatribe by Awan Alice Wahome. Hadn't her diatribe against Uhuru Kenyatta been caught on camera, I would have simply dismissed it as an impersonation or even a parody of Miguna Miguna imitating Alice Wahome. There is bias remorse, but when it comes from Alice Wahome, the bias must have seriously underestimated how damaged the goods they voted for were. Welcome. This is Matters Arising. Bias remorse for voting for Uhuru Kenyatta and Jubilee have been trickling in since 2018. There are such posts on social media that are rather specific, like this one, which says, I, Michael Mwendwa, being of sound mind without any form of coercion, voted for Jubilee, more specifically for Uhuru Kenyatta in 2013 and 2017, twice. Lord have mercy. I am one of the citizens responsible for the economic mess that Kenyatta have put us through. I'm sorry. Accept my apologies. There is also this one, loosely translated, meaning, this is the day it rained and we said that God himself had anointed the king, read Uhuru Kenyatta. God forgive us. There are many others, including a mea culpa moment by Awan Moses Kuria that fell short of naming names. But when it comes to bias remorse, I think the medal currently is being held by Awan Alice Wahome. Listen to her.
I also want to tell Kenyans that the biggest existential threat to Kenya's declining economy and democracy and freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of political affiliation and growth is Uhuru Kenyatta.
Ati what?
I also want to tell Kenyans that the biggest existential threat to Kenya's declining economy and democracy and freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of political affiliation and growth is Uhuru Kenyatta.
When Alice Wahome was traversing the country telling us that Uhuru Kenyatta was the anointed of the Most High, we of sane mind, we of deep reflection, we of great love for our country and concern for the future of its youth said an emphatic no. I personally wrote several pieces in 2016 and 2017 where I was categorical that few Kenyans are more unqualified to run for the presidency of this country than Awan Uhuru Kenyatta. As for Jubilee, I said that it ascended to power under the circumstances it did when we were looking for change and progress was nothing short of a tragedy. Of course, Jubilee supporters called me all sorts of names. Now, they are having buyer's remorse. When I was writing my uncompromising opposition to Uhuru Kenyatta, Jubilee and their then opponents calling themselves called NASA, the likes of Alice Wahome were shouting themselves hoarse about the virtues of Uhuru Kenyatta and the holiness of the Jubilee government. I was very categorical about the Jubilee regime when I said the Jubilee government is a tribal administration founded by a self-confessed YK92 hustler and a 2002 failed Moi project, who, in 2013, were fugitives from international justice indicted at the ICC for high crimes against humanity. I can understand why they would want to come together, and that is the problem. A union consummated in the bed of impunity can never give birth to an accountable and corruption-free administration. It is a simple fact that even a Sunday school kid will tell you, you reap what you sow. I did explain why it was impossible for the person of Uhuru Kenyatta to lead any sort of government, much less a transformative one. He is simply the poster boy of the status quo. Allow me to quote myself again from the same article. It is not possible to find any Kenyan presently who, on his own behalf, on behalf of his family, his and his father's biological, political, and economic associates, is more invested in the status quo than Uhuru Kenyatta. He is the poster boy of an oligarchy started by his father and entrenched by his political godfather, and which he is a captive of. I have made the argument before that if Jomo Kenyatta, the old man, Daniel Arap Moi, and Mwai Kibaki met to select their successor, all would agree on Uhuru Kenyatta, at least on a simple majority. I would like to remind the now very angry and disappointed supporters of Uhuru Kenyatta and Jubilee, who are now having a mea culpa moment, that it is not Uhuru who has changed. It is they who are blinded by the sycophancy and utter bigotry of the Alice Wahomes of this world. Uhuru has never been any type of leader, much less a visionary one, and that is actually the reason why Moi fingered him to succeed him in 2002. I explained at length in another article I penned on October 24th, 2016, titled, Mr. Uhuru, a true leader knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And in that article, I asked the question, does Uhuru Kenyatta know the way? My answer then was, and still is, no, he doesn't. I will paraphrase my sentiments as I expressed them then. I had continuously and consistently made the argument that before Moi came knocking on his mama's door, Uhuru had never dreamt of being president, and he is free to accept or deny this claim. He, however, happened to be the perfect marionette for the scheming Daniel Arap Moi, who, upon seeing that his exit was imminent, wanted to replace himself with a clueless puppet who not only had enough vested interests in the system to want to protect the status quo for both himself and Moi, but one who was harmless and clueless enough not to upstage his godfather once he ascended to power. Moi, I need not remind you, was politically astute and could not have made a mistake on this one. You see, his whole legacy and his whole life after retirement depended on this one decision, and he could not have gotten it wrong. I don't know whether Uhuru's supporters have really appreciated just how grave this decision was for Moi. For him, it was literally a matter of life and death. Remember, this was going to be the first democratic transfer of power by a living president in Kenya's history. Moi was aware that Africa and the world had seen situations where people are elected into the presidency and they haul their predecessors into kangaroo courts and then to the gallows. Kenya had never had a situation where a president, much less an unpopular one, had left office. Moi was in new, unknown, and dangerous, very dangerous territory. He needed to be sure. In fact, he needed to be double sure. And the perfect candidate for his purposes was Uhuru Kenyatta. You see, Uhuru ticked all the boxes. First, he and his family were invested enough in the system to want to protect the status quo. Secondly, he had no known or demonstrable personal skills or abilities or portfolio or any achievements of note, proving that he had no special intellectual abilities or personal giftings, and therefore he was clueless and ambitionless enough to function effortlessly as Moi's marionette. It may not have worked out exactly as Moi had planned. It turns out there were other people who could as easily protect him. But his analysis of the person of Uhuru Kenyatta was right on the money. And therefore, anyone who is surprised at the clueless Jubilee and Uhuru's leadership should not waste their energies. He is who Moi wanted him to be. Clueless, powerless, visionless, ambitionless, and only good as someone's marionette. With Moi gone, his marionette project has been captured by the economic and political functionaries. These are his father's and Moi's political and economic orphans, the corrupt cartels, and he is being puppeteered just like Moi imagined. Remember, the old man was not called a professor of politics for nothing. Those having a mea culpa moment about voting for Uhuru and Jubilee are in for a rude shock. You ain't seen nothing yet. In my village, we say, you are being scared of the ears and you have not seen the horns yet. Brace yourself. Uhuru was Moi's project, and for reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with you or with the country. And those who sold him to you knew that. Now you know. You are on your own. The sense of great regret after having made a purchase is called buyer's remorse. The likes of Alice Wahome sold you a candidate called Uhuru Kenyatta and a party called Jubilee, and now you are in deep remorse for having made the purchase. You know you are in deep trouble when the salesmen and women like Alice Wahome and Moses Kuria start describing the goods they sold to you as seriously damaged. We who are in the know did tell you as much, but I guess we were drowned by the Alice Wahomes of this world and the compromised media that is owned by the status quo and is never interested in alternative voices. I wish I had better news for you. Unfortunately, I have just the old news I gave you in 2016. It is hard to find a Kenyan who is more unqualified to be president than Uhuru Kenyatta. And his Jubilee government is a clueless, thieving, and illegitimate regime that should never have come to power. I wish that is all I had. It is not. There is more. And that is, you are on your own. And you are regretting far too early. With Uhuru Kenyatta and the Jubilee government, you ain't seen nothing yet. For Matters Arising, I am Professor Wainaina.